Cobra Kai Season 6 had a huge send-off for the show's 6th season run. And one of the most unique things in the final season was the fact that for once, it seemed like our main 6 students were all going to be on the same side. That is until the tournament actually began. But while the Miyagi Do students weren't enemies, that didn't mean that new rivals wouldn't rise. Today, we'll look at the obvious and also hidden rivalries of the 8 Miyagi Do students during the Sekai Taikai. Now, I did say 8, as we will be including Miguel Diaz, Sam Larusso, Robby Keene, Tory Nichols, Eli Hawk Moskowitz, Demetri Alexopolus, Payne, and Devon Lee, and we will all be looking at each of their rivals. To start this off, we have 3 categories: pretty obvious rivalries, middle ground rivalries, and harder to find rivalries. To start things off, we have 3 in our obvious category, beginning with Miyagi Do's male captain, Robby Keene. Robby Keene's rivalry starts really before even the tournament begins, as once he became the captain of Miyagi Do, it was inevitable that he would clash with Kwon Jae-sung. Their rivalry officially began when Kwon started to taunt Miyagi Do after the introduction to the Sekai Taikai. At first, Robby didn't play into Kwon's games, but when Kwon challenged Robby and Miyagi Do to the kicking contest, Robby didn't back down and unfortunately lost his and Demetri's rooms. It wasn't long before the two clashed again, as they would face off during the Captain's War, where Kwon would be able to beat Robby as soon as he was distracted by Tory, eliminating Miyagi Do from the match. The two wouldn't fight again for a long while. However, off the mat, Kwon continued to try and get into Robby's head using Tory to his advantage, telling lies that would continue to push Robby even further. When Cobra Kai and Miyagi Do finally faced off in the final tag team match, the final point was between Kwon and Robby. To Kwon's surprise, Robby was at his best after finding out that Kwon had played him the entire time. By the end of the fight, Robby had won for Team Miyagi Do, eliminating Cobra Kai once and for all. Or so they thought, until Cobra Kai was reinstated after the Russian Tiger Strike were caught cheating. The conclusion to this rivalry would come during Robby's semifinal match against Axel Kovacevic, in which Robby Keene was thrown into Cobra Kai's arms, and Kwon didn't hesitate to take a cheap shot at him. With the help of Dublin Thunder and the Russian Tiger Strikes, the Sekai Taikai brawl had begun. For the majority of the fight, Kwon and Robby would continue to face off against each other, and Robby would be able to hold off Kwon and the rest of the Cobra Kai team for the entirety of the fight. That is, until Kwon would eventually have to face off against Axel Kovacevic, making his fatal mistake and ending the rivalry once and for all. So, for Robby Keene, his main rival would be Kwon Jae-sung, and his rival dojo throughout the tournament was Korea's Team Cobra Kai. Now, our second obvious rivalry would belong to Robby Keene's other half in Tory Nichols. Her rivalry with Zara Malik is a main part of the story in Season 6. Originally, it seemed that maybe Zara was going to be friendly with Tory, but after Tory gave her the cold shoulder, and noticing that Tory had something going on with Robby, Zara had found her target. Their first fight would be once again in the Captain's War, in which after Miyagi Do and Falchi de la Notte were eliminated, Tory signed herself up to fight against Zara. But Zara would beat Tory, eliminating Team Cobra Kai and winning for the Iron Dragons. The two wouldn't fight again for a while, but much like Kwon, off the mat, Zara would torment Tory at the bar, in the hotel, and any chance she could. She, much like Kwon, would use Robby to get into Tory's head. But Tory did strike back when she revealed the truth on Zara's live stream. However, after Cobra Kai was eliminated, Zara was disappointed that she wouldn't get to fight Tory, until of course we all know what happens when Cobra Kai rejoins the semifinals. During the brawl, Tory would try and find Robby to help him throughout the fight, but Zara would cut in, stopping her and facing off against her. The two would continue to fight for the majority of the brawl, that is until Robby Keene and Samantha Larusso would jump in and help her against the rest of the Iron Dragons. When the brawl ended, seemingly so did the rivalry, until the Sekai Taikai was reinstated for the semifinals and finals match. Tory had originally planned to stay out of the tournament until Sam encouraged her to rejoin, and when Sam dropped out of the semifinals match, Tory finally had her match set with Zara. For the first half of the match, Zara had control, that is until Tory focused with the help of her team and Robby, and ultimately she was able to come out on top, knocking Zara and some of her teeth out. So, for the tournament, Tory's main rival was Zara Malik, and her rival dojo would be Hong Kong's Iron Dragons. We then come to the second male captain of Team Cobra Kai, that being Miguel Diaz. For a good majority of the Sekai Taikai, Miguel actually didn't have a rival, until he actually left the tournament. While Miguel had left for the tournament to check on his mom, Axel Kovacevic and Sam would meet each other for the first time, and Axel would quickly develop feelings for Sam. But after Sam shut it down, explaining that she was dating Miguel, Axel then had a huge vendetta against Miguel that Miguel was completely unaware of. At the beginning, the rival was just some simply dirty looks and bumps. But when Quan elbowed Robby, things changed. As when Miguel went in to confront Quan, Axel stepped in the way, pushing him to the ground, causing the rivalry to finally erupt. During most of the Sekai Taikai brawl, Miguel is seen facing off against Axel and trying to knock him down to no avail. Although Miguel does keep getting up, nothing seems to change for the majority of the fight. But again, after tragedy strikes, the rivalry seemed to have a close until the tournament made its return. The rivalry then truly became personal when Axel ended up breaking Robby's leg in the semifinals. Miguel wanted to avenge his brother and stop Axel, so him and Johnny both joined Team Cobra Kai to face off against the Iron Dragons. In the finals match, Miguel was able to beat Axel with a knockdown, and he became the male champion, ending the rivalry from here on out. So, for Miguel Diaz, his rival would be Axel Kovacevic from again Hong Kong's Iron Dragons. We then come to the Middleground Rivalries. These are rivalries that aren't as obvious, but they are there. We have two fighters in this category, starting with our final captain, Samantha Larusso. Sam, much like Miguel, doesn't have a rival until later on into the tournament. Her rivalry does begin sooner though, as it begins during the platform fight. Once Devon points out that they'll be facing Dublin Thunder, Hawk chimes in saying that Dublin's team is always looking for a fight, and it's very clear that Sam doesn't exactly approve of their gung-ho mentality. Once the fight begins, Sam fights alongside Robby and does well, and then she's eventually joined by Devon. But unfortunately, Sam is eventually beaten by Cara McAllister, leaving Devon to team up with Hawk. Eventually, Devon is able to eliminate Cara along with herself, which leads to an interesting outcome, but I'll get to that later. Their rivalry wouldn't show up again until the Sekai Taikai brawl. As Sam, much like Tory, tries to help Robby, Cara cuts her off, saying that she doesn't belong in the semifinals. Sam spends most of the brawl fighting against Cara and two other Dublin Thunder fighters. Eventually, Sam is able to end the fight by knocking Cara out with a flip kick, and actually that's what ends the rivalry completely. So, for Samantha Larusso, her rival would be Cara McAllister, and her rival dojo was Dublin Thunder. We then come to Eli Hawk Moskowitz, who's actually an interesting contender, as he technically has two rivals for the tournament. One is shown and the other that's more implied. Hawk's first rivalry begins when Cobra Kai first meets up with Miyagi Do. When Quan starts to talk smack, Hawk is quick to defend, and when he does, he's countered by Yoon Do Jin. The two continue to scowl at each other, but they don't fight until the Captain's War, in which, sadly, due to Hawk's ego and unpreparedness, he's taken by surprise by Yoon and eliminated. As the tournament continues on, Hawk doesn't face Yoon again until the final tag team match. After Demetri faces off against Yoon, he's able to tag Hawk in. Luckily, with a steady head, the Binary Brothers are able to figure out a plan to confuse Yoon, using Kenny, Demetri, and Hawk all at the same time, allowing Eli to earn an easy point with a dropkick, again ending their rivalry. Now, as for Hawk's second rivalry, this would be his rivalry with Diego Aguilar, or Spanish Hawk. As much as these two are pitted against one another, they never actually fight each other. But, according to Jacob Bertrand, Juliana Ramos, and Justin Ortiz, there was a lot of cut footage where these two actually had a bigger rivalry with each other, from scowls to petty bumps, and eventually leading into a fight. These deleted scenes would have shown Diego targeting Hawk and even Demetri to get to Hawk. There seems to be a cut moment in which Hawk would have been watching Demetri fight Diego, and after Diego scores the point on Demetri, Diego would have pointed out Hawk, saying that he was next. The two would continue to have issues until the Sekai Taikai brawl, when Diego, Animal, and Maria all came to help the Binary Brothers against Russian Tiger Strike. During this fight, Hawk and Diego actually earned each other's respects, resolving their rivalry and not ending it in a fight. So for Hawk, his first rival was Yoon Do Jin of Team Cobra Kai, and his second rival turned ally would be Diego Aguilar of Spain's Furia de Pantera. Now, I might as well mention it here, but according to Juliana Ramos Ortiz, there was seemingly a rivalry cut for Samantha Larusso, in which it seemed that Sam would have a second rival in Maria Alvarez. What the rivalry would focus around was the fact that Maria would use very chauvinistic and flashy kicks, Meanwhile, Sam would have to counter it with sticking to her fundamentals and sticking with the basics, which eventually would beat Maria. Now, we do see the two of them fight in Season 6, but it's really the only time they interact, so I didn't count it as a rivalry since the two only really have one scene together. Finally, we come to our third section, the more hidden rivalries that are harder to notice. To round out our main 6, we'll start with Demetri Alexopolus. Although people may say that Demetri didn't do as much in the tournament as some of the others, the truth is, we honestly don't see a lot of the fights in the tournament. And I'm sorry, but as much as I am a fan of Miguel, there's no way he earned all those points alone. The team is carrying their weight, and there are many fights that we don't see, because we need to have a sense of dread for the season by showing Miyagi Do struggling the entire time. Although at times it seems like the other Miyagi Do students aren't doing as much as someone like Miguel or even Sam, the truth is, we don't see the entirety of the Sekai Taikai, and to be honest, there are a lot of points that Miyagi Do earns that we don't see on screen. There is a good majority of Miyagi Do's score that we have unaccounted for. So, it's more than likely that the other Miyagi Do students are actually carrying their weight, but to build up the sense of dread that the season needs, they can't show Miyagi Do succeeding. And that's exactly where our rivalry begins. In the opening to episode 7, Miyagi Do is shown struggling all across the board. And the main one we will focus on is Demetri facing off against Vlad. From what we see, Demetri does get hit, earning a point for Vlad, but we never see the final outcome of this fight. In fact, the next time we see this rivalry continue would again not be until the Sekai Taikai Brawl. Demetri and Eli, for the entirety of the Sekai Taikai Brawl, are fighting one team, that being the Russian Tiger Strikes. This is a unique instance as we see Demetri actually begin to badmouth another team to their face, as him and Eli face off against all 6 fighters. Luckily, when things start to go south, Furia de Pantera eventually does tag in, making the fight a lot easier. Now, although Demetri is not the main focus of this fight, we do have some BTS footage that shows Demetri in this fight is a lot more aggressive than we've ever seen him before. Demetri continues to challenge and push the Russian team further and further even after he beats them. The rivalry is continued, but in the background. Now, in the background of the fight between Axel and Quan, we get to see this rivalry continue, as on stage, Demetri eventually does get his rematch with Vlad, as it seems in the background the two begin to wrestle. The final nail in the coffin for this rivalry is when Quan goes for the final blow against Axel. We actually see that behind him, Demetri is still fighting the Russian team, only he's not fighting Vlad or any of the other Tiger Strike students. But instead, he has joined Robby in being one of the only few students to actually fight a sensei. Demetri is seen actually fighting Sensei Ivanov, who just was fighting Chosen Taguchi right before the fight ends. So, for Demetri, his rival would end up being Vlad, and his rival dojo is easily the Russian Tiger Strike. Now, for a fighter who's only in the Sekai Taikai for 3 matches, Kenny apparently doesn't waste time in making a rival. After Robby tags him in during the second tag team match, Kenny faces off against Redentores, and fights against their team captain, Gabriel. Kenny is able to earn 2 points, beating Redentores and aiding Miyagi Do. Now, the rivalry doesn't have too much after that, until we get again to the final brawl. Kenny and Devon aren't in the brawl as much as some of the others, most likely due to the fact that the 2 of them are keeping their distance in the fight, since Kenny and Devon are most likely the least experienced fighters in the entire tournament. But Kenny is being chased down by Gabriel and his teammates throughout the brawl. Luckily, on the second floor, Kenny and Devon are able to work together to knock out both of their rivals, ending both rivalries at the same time. So, for Kenny Payne, as little as it is, his rival would be Gabriel, and his rival dojo will be Brazil's Redentores. Finally, we have Devon Lee. Devon's rivalry begins during the platform fight. After joining Sam on the platform, she does well, eliminating a few fighters. And it's in this fight that she faces off against a girl named Patty Hogan, eventually eliminating her. After Sam gets eliminated, she's able to team up with Hawk, where she does make the sacrifice play and takes Kara with her, which, again, does make it strange that Kara starts to target Sam, but she doesn't target Devon. Devon doesn't face Dublin Thunder again until the Sekai Taikai Brawl, in which, while Kenny is dealing with Redentores, she is avoiding Dublin Thunder. During this match, Kara isn't the one fighting her. Instead, Patty makes her return looking for revenge, as she and one other fighter start to chase Devon. Luckily, like I said previously, Devon and Kenny working together are able to knock out their 4 opponents, ending their rivalries. So, for our final rivalry, Devon Lee faces off against Patty Hogan, and her rival dojo is once again Dublin Thunder. I also feel it interesting, just to add it here, that Demetri is one of really only 3 students that not only makes an enemy throughout the tournament, but also ends up making an ally. Of course, Demetri's ally would end up being Maria Alvarez of Furia de Pantera. The two do help each other out during the Sekai Taikai final brawl, and they had met earlier when Maria was dancing. Joining Demetri are 2 other fighters who also kind of made allies, being one, Eli Hawk Moskowitz, who of course eventually did become an ally to Diego Aguilar, and also in a way Samantha Larusso, who kind of became an ally with Axel Kovacevic, although Axel does target certain Miyagi Do students by the end of the season. So I feel it's interesting just to mention it here. With all the buzz about people wanting deleted scenes, or even maybe an extended version of Season 6, I do hope that if they do happen, we can see more of these rivalries shine. Hawk vs Diego, Sam vs Kara, Devon vs Patty, and Demetri vs Vlad. The only reason I don't mention Kenny is because, most likely since Kenny joined the tournament so late, there wouldn't be much extra footage, but who knows? With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Comment down below about your favorite rivalry during the Sekai Taikai. Which do you think we could have seen more of? And is there one that you didn't notice until now? Leave all the comments down below, and until then, I'll see you all in the next one.